Good morning, everyone. Another day, another video. Got an 07 GMC Yukon. Customer says that he has to have it in four-wheel drive for it to move. And I figured there's only a couple different things that could be. None are good. I don't think it's a transfer case. I actually think it's the rear end. Let's take a look at it here and see what we can find. Remote doesn't work. We'll see if this battery is dead, which I have a feeling it is. Yeah. Gosh dang it. All right. Let's get that on there. .8 volts. Let's see if she starts. All right, let's see if she'll move. So it looks like we're in 4 high. Let's see what happens. We try it in two-wheel drive. Woo. Let's try that again. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Listen real close. Something's turning, but we're not moving. Let's try four-wheel drive. Put it in gear. Ooh. She moves. I'm gonna put you guys down there and you can tell me if that rear drive shaft is turning. If it is, ring and pinion are stripped out, which I kind of have a feeling that's what's going on. Let's get you down there. You guys can tell me what's going on. Leave it in four-wheel drive for now. Okay, let's put it back in two-wheel drive and you guys can tell me what that drive shaft does. It was turning, wasn't it? Let's bring it inside, get it on the hoist, pull that rear cover off and see what's going on there. Back into four-wheel drive. Let's start by pulling this plug and see what it looks like. Doesn't look like we have any fluid leaks. Should be something in here. I'm guessing a lot of metal. Let's see what we got. Ooh. She's pretty flaky. There is fluid in there. It's not good fluid though. All right, we gotta get the sway bar out of the way here. We'll pull this cover off and really see what it looks like inside. Okay, I think we're about ready to witness some carnage here. See what we got going on. We have spider gears that are completely gone. Let me show you. Look at this one right here. caught there. It was just slipping, but ain't that something. So that is actually really good news. I was expecting ring and pinion, the whole 9 yards, but we're still gonna recommend replacing bearings because there is just a lot of metal in there. A lot of metal right there. And that gets carried around with the fluid. The axle tubes are gonna have metal in them. So yeah, we're just gonna recommend replacing the bearings, but it sure sounded a lot worse than that. So I'll call the customer and see what he wants to do. So customer was okay with that. We got to go ahead. I'm just gonna put you on a time lapse here and get started on this. I got a few other things I got going on today. So to save me the time of talking to the camera for the next couple hours, just gonna put you on a time lapse and get this rear end pulled apart, and then I'll bring you back. Lots of stuff in there. So everything's stripped down. Got all the races out of it. Just need to clean it up a little bit. I do want to show you inside here. So that little, it's like a reluctor wheel for your speed sensor. So make sure when you're pulling bearings out that you don't catch that. It's like a friction fit onto the axle shaft, and then it spins and triggers your speed sensor. All right, so I'm gonna clean all this stuff up off camera, and then we can start to assess what we got and kind of go from there. So we got everything cleaned up. Yeah, there's mass destruction in here. So we got our new carrier. Comes loaded with all the spider gears, clutches, everything. You can see a little bit of a difference in there. This one wore into the housing and everything. So what we need to do here is get our ring gear switched over, and then we're gonna get our bearings, not switched over, but we're gonna put new bearings on here. So first off, let's pull this ring gear off. These are reverse thread, so forward. Right, let's see if we can tap that off there. Keep working around, she'll come. Kind of a tight fit. There we go. All right, so this is pretty much ready for the scrap. That's all done. I'm gonna get this all cleaned up, and then we'll go back together with that. All right, ring gear. New bolts. Let's get it worked up here. See if we can get it close. Oh yeah. Maybe off just a little bit there. That one started. Definitely a tight fit on here, so you got to kind of just work around very slowly. These are going to be 89 pound-feet. I'll get this kind of run up so it's nice and flat, and then I'll put it over in the vise and then we'll torque them. All right, we're close there. No gap. Take this over to the other bench. I'll get it torqued down and then we'll put our bearings on. So that's all done, torqued down, 89 foot-pounds. Let's grab our bearings and get those picked out here. So we got our pinion bearings here. These are the side bearings here, or carrier bearings, I should say. We got our pinion nut, crush sleeve, seal. Try not to get that all dirty. Okay, we're going to lay these off to the side, and those are the two that we need. So if you're doing this, I would suggest, if you have to replace the carrier and you don't have a race, what I use is either the old bearing race to put the new bearings on, because you can see that this inner race of this bearing sits lower than the carrier snout right there. So definitely make sure that you're getting it down far enough. I actually have done a few of these, so I have my own inner race there already. Which, yeah, that might not be the right one. So let me see if I can find the right one. Otherwise, we got to pull this bearing off and get that race off so we can get that pushed down all the way. Let me see if I can find one here. So we're trying to get our bearing off here so we can get that inner race to press on our other bearings here. Now, if you don't have a tool like this, a bearing puller for differentials, what you can do is take a grinder and just score the cage, get the cage off, and then score the inner race, smack it with a chisel to pop it loose, and then that'll come right off. But for these purposes, I'm going to use our tool here. See if we can get this pulled off with a bearing puller. See if we can pull it off here, or if it comes apart. Let's see what we can do. I think we just pulled the cage off it. Yes, we did. So, I'm going to show you how to score it. And then we'll do it that way. Sometimes that happens. Okay, dump all our needles off there. Okay, let's score that, and then we'll pop it with a chisel and get that off there. All right, so if you were keeping this carrier, you would definitely not want to go into the snout of the carrier there. So we're just going to take a chisel and see if we can break this. Watch your eyes when you do this, because it's a little chip. I'd have to go a little bit further. I think I felt it there. Alright, so we'll get that off. Shouldn't have been doing that, grinding over these new bearings. I will definitely clean those. Okay, so there's our race. That's what we need to press on the new bearing. Let's lay down some clean paper towel. Okay, I'm just going to clean these out real quick, and then we'll get those pressed on. Just going to take a little bit of gear oil here for assembly. Just a light coat on there. Bearing, let's wipe her down again. We'll be wiping it down before we put it in too. There's a bearing there. And again, our race right there. As you can tell, I've done a few bearing installs. Make sure that's straight on there. Alright, looks like she's going on there straight. So you can definitely hear the noise when it's fully seated. So see how the snout actually sticks up from that inner race. This will fit right over it and press it down over the top of it. So let's do the other side here. That bearing. And a BFH. You can also do this in the press too. I just like to pound them on. There we go. So that's seated. We got that all done there. Let's make some room here. So that right there is ready to be installed. But first, we need to get our pinion set up here. This this is going to be kind of another deal where we need to get our bearing off and then also use that inner race to press the new bearing on. So we'll try this again, see if we can get this to work. Kind of a handy tool to have. Again, if you don't have one, you can cut the cage off and try to get it off that way. That collar on there, tighten that up. All right, let's see if she'll do it. Sure felt like it did. Nice. Come on. That off there. Want to make sure that we keep a shim there. We're going to be reusing that. Put over there. All right. So again, we're going to pull this cage off. I'm just going to cut it off with a grinder, and then we'll get this cleaned up and get our new bearing put on there. So we got our inner pinion bearing race off. You can see that there was definitely some issues with that bearing. Not super bad, but there is some pitting in there. So again, make sure that we have our shim in there. We're gonna go back just the same way that we came out with it. We will verify the setup when we're done to make sure everything is good. Get some oil on there, some gear oil. So we got a bearing slit on there. You're gonna see when we put this down on there, we can take a punch and get that on there. It doesn't take much usually. You can also put this in the vise, or excuse me, the press. You'd probably put it in like this and press down on the end. I, for some reason, have anger issues and need to use a hammer. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. Just work it around. Once it gets started, it goes down pretty easy. Definitely hear a different tone when you get it down all the way. But make sure you get it down all the way. Get over here just to make sure. All right. Nice installing tool. So you can also verify that there's no gap in there. Bearing's good there. Let's see. I'm going to throw my crush sleeve on there. Start with, let's get our races put into the rear differential housing, and then we can get our pinion set up. Okay, so we got everything cleaned up here. We got the front bearing installed. You can see that right here. Again, make sure you lubricate this really well before you put your race in there. And make sure this is very clean in here so there's nothing in there. All right, here's the new race. This needs to sit below the surface here. So again, we're using the old race upside down once we get this started, and then we can get that seated all the way in there. Doesn't take much to get it in there. Make sure you're getting it in straight. Okay. So again, what I like to do is stick the old race upside down and make sure that that is all the way in there. Unless you have a bearing installer that fits exactly perfect. And we probably got that seated the first time with the bearing installer, but there we go. So that's in there, looks good. Again, it sits below this surface right here, so make sure you get that all the way in there. All right, time to get the pinion installed. You gotta put the front bearing in, and then our seal, and then our pinion gets loaded obviously from this side, and I'll show you how to set that up. There's a rotating torque spec on there to seat the bearings and crush that sleeve. So we'll do that next. Okay, so we got our races in, the front bearing and the seal. We got our pinion here, bearing installed and lubricated. Don't forget your crush sleeve. And I'm just gonna set this in there for now, and then I'll switch the camera angle around to the front so we can see what's going on there. I'm just gonna set that in there. That for now. We got our flange here. There's a little washer. I did put a little bit of silicone behind that washer. And we need to see if we can get this on here. Oh yeah. A couple threads is all we need to get it started. Okay. See, we still have slop in that pinion. We got to crush that sleeve so we can get our preload. So once you get to this point, you got to slow down and just kind of pay attention a little at a time, because it comes up quick. So once you get all the free play out of it, yeah, then you got to do a turning torque reading on this pinion. So if you go too far, the crush sleeve is junk, you got to start all over. So just a little at a time. A little bit of free play left. Okay, free play is not there anymore, so very... Okay, I know that's not enough there. I'm going to go a little bit further. All right, I'm going to look up the torques, or the preload turning torque on this nut, and then we'll check it. I know it's not there yet, but we got to keep on checking it as we get this tighter. So let me grab that spec and I'll be right back. Our preload on this bearing is going to be 15 to 30 inch-pounds of rotating torque. And this is on a new bearing. It's different if it's a, you know, a different original bearing. So we are at about 5. So we got a little bit to go. Okay, let's see how far that got us. It's about 25. Very hard to see without a light here. That's 25. Takes more torque to get it started than it does after it starts to move. That's about 20. Let's go just a little bit more. I don't know if that did anything there. Let's check it. It was a pretty light tap. No, that didn't do anything. Okay. I think we're close there. It's 25. Oh, that's 25. All right. Pinion preload is set. Feels good. If you have any issues where it's hard in spots, and then you probably got a bearing installed wrong or something. Maybe it's not quite seated right. This feels nice and smooth. So all right, pinions in. Let's get our carrier, and we'll get that put in next. All right, carrier's going in here. A little awkward. Make sure you got your bearing races in there and your shims. Your shim should be in the same side, same orientation as what you took them out at. So let's get it all kind of worked in here and see if we can't get it in there. Might need to tap it in a little bit. You don't want to really beat on those shims. See. Just working it back and forth here. Probably should have a spreader for these and spread it, and that would help this, but this is the way I've always done it. As long as you're careful. We're now starting to engage the pinion teeth, so we're almost there. A little bit more. Again, if that shim does not want to go in there, don't bang on it and crack it or anything like that. I'm barely tapping on it and it's going in there. All right, looks good there. We're gonna put our bearing caps on. I got a witness mark here and a witness mark on the cap itself. I just take a little punch and punch that, and the corresponding mark on the cap here. Don't ask me why it's 1 and 2 over here. It's kind of backwards. But anyway, that's the way I did it. So we're going to tighten these, just snug them down for now, and we're going to pay attention to this backlash. I think we're going to be pretty good though. So let me just run these in real quick, and then we'll be back with a torque spec. 63 foot-pounds on the bearing caps here. And torque them in a crossing pattern. I like to go around a few times just to make sure everything's seated. That should be good. This is a 8.6 rear end, so that's the torque spec for an 8.6 rear end. 9.5 is different, it's more. So next step is to check the backlash. I believe the spec is 3 to 10 thousandths. Preferred is 5 thousandths to 7 thousandths. So we'll set up a dial indicator, check that. I think she'll be good though. Feels good. We'll verify that. So let's see what we got here for backlash. Get our gauge. It's about 9.5. Like I said, preferred is 5 to 7. The range is 3 to 10 thousandths. So I think we're going to let that stand as is. It's within spec. It's a little on the higher side, which I think will be fine. We're going to check our gear mesh pattern, and then axle bearings, seals, throw some axles in it, and get this thing wrapped up. Got our little marking compound here. Let's put some on the coast side here, the drive side here. We're going to check this in a few spots. Okay, we're going to turn this over and kind of hold some pressure on here. We'll see where our gear pattern is. Go both sides. Coast side looks good. kind of hard to tell in some of those spots where I got a little too much paint on there. Okay, so our goal is, it's easier to see on the coast side here, but our pattern right here is about dead center of the tooth. And as we rotate it on the driven side here, you can see it's wiped all across it. It's not too deep. Actually looks really good. Yeah, you can see how it's wiped all across it there. And the pattern might be a little, just a hair in, but not too bad. I put too much paint on it, actually. Too much of that marker. I'm trying to wipe it off here. But yeah, it's looking good. Backlash looks real good. Pattern's real good. Gear mesh, awesome. Well, it's the end of the day. Finally got back on this later this afternoon. There's some other stuff I had to get done, but off camera, put it all back together. Did do a transfer case service also, filled the rear diff with fluid. Had to jump start it to get it going. Let's take it for a drive and see what it sounds like. Two-wheel drive. Ooh, she sounds nice. No clunking and banging in reverse. So far so good. No whining noises. Actually, yeah, it drives fairly decent actually. That's weird. Put the turn signal on and the high beams come on. High beam indicator. He didn't bring it in here for that, so I'm just worried about the rear end. Nice and quiet. Alright guys, that does it for another video. Like, subscribe, share, comment. We'll see you on the next one.